Brilliant innovation or sport-specific gimmick. Few techniques in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu have sparked as much heated debate as the Berimbolo. What is undeniable is the fact that bolos have transformed the modern Jiu Jitsu landscape. In this episode, we will explore the origins, the evolution, and the future of the Berimbolo. And of course, be sure to check out ourjujitsu.com for jiu-jitsu t-shirts and more. We recently came out with some bolo designs that we think you will love. And if you're looking to get some discounts on your favorite jiu-jitsu brands like Phalanx FC or Submeta, make sure to head to our Jiu-Jitsu's Deals and Discounts page. If you've ever watched a John Danaher instructional, you'll know that technique names are rarely meaningless. So the first thing we need to discuss is, what does Berimbolo mean exactly? What kind of word is that, and where does it come from? Well, unfortunately, there isn't a great answer when it comes to the etymology of Berimbolo. If you were to search a Brazilian dictionary, you won't find a definition for Berimbolo or Berimbolar. And depending on the Brazilian you ask, they won't even recognize the word. Brazilian Portuguese has a lot of region-specific and even community-specific slang terms, and Berimbolo is one of them. So if you're learning Portuguese, don't go thinking that this is a conversational word that you can really make use of. To expand on that point, Creonte is another example of, air quotes, a Portuguese word that only Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners understand. If you are talking to a Brazilian who doesn't know Jiu-Jitsu, you instead use the word traidor or traitor rather than Creonte. It's really a word that is just specific to the BJJ community in Brazil, and the same goes for Berimbolo. According to BJJ heroes who spoke to Andre Galvão about the technique, they say Berimbolo or Berimbolar means scramble, kind of like a disorganized, jumbled, spinning, chaotic mess. There are some references to the Berimbolo movement actually being called the helicopter originally, although that seems to be a point of debate. Some people say it was the same move and other people say it wasn't. It's certainly possible that people were using the Berimbolo as we know it at similar periods in time, but all had different names for it. Complicating matters is that Brazilians don't really concern themselves with giving specific names to techniques and positions the way English-speaking practitioners do. For them, they probably would have just referred to it as a sweep or backtake from De La Riva. The word Berimbolo only really seemed to enter the zeitgeist in the 2000s and 2010s. According to the BJJ Heroes article, the common theme behind the meaning of Berimbolo, as they define it, seems to be around the idea of a scramble or spin, which makes a lot of sense. If you've ever sparred with a good bolo player, then it can feel like you are flying through the air as this person does this crazy inversion underneath of you. It's especially a technique that is hard for beginner practitioners to see and understand the mechanics of. From the outside, it can just look like a disorganized, chaotic mess. Which brings us to the next question. What exactly is a Berimbolo? Some of you might laugh at that question, but it's actually a bit of a debate in the Jiu-Jitsu community. We all know the classic Berimbolo comes from an inversion after a De La Riva sweep. But what about rolling backtakes or knee wedge backtakes? Are those Berimbolos as well? For the sake of this discussion, we'll speak as if the Berimbolo is inclusive of all these variations that involve controlling the hips with leg entanglements with the goal to spin or invert to the back. Now you might be asking, who is the creator of the Berimbolo then? Tatami magazine ran a story talking about how Marcel Ferreira from the Carlson Gracie Academy created the Berimbolo backtake as a response to his partner backstepping his De La Riva hook back in the 1990s. Back to that BJJ Heroes article that quotes Andre Galvão as saying the Berimbolo wasn't invented by Marcel and that the actual inventor is unknown. As a side note, for those of you wondering why is Andre Galvão being brought up in this conversation, he's not someone that's particularly known for being a bolo specialist. Well, Galvão had a front row seat to some of the biggest moments and people in Jiu-Jitsu history throughout the 90s and early 2000s. He trained in Rio de Janeiro, he trained with the historic TT team in Brasa Clube. When it comes to that critical period of time in the 90s and 2000s that pioneered Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil and the United States, there are few people more qualified than Galvão to talk to about that period of history. So what we can say is a definitive fact is about when the Berimbolo was first documented in competition. Gracie Barra's Samuel Braga is the first man to be recognized for using the Berimbolo at black belt level, which he demonstrated at the 2005 World Championships. In a different interview with BJJ Heroes, Samuel Braga claims that he invented the Berimbolo as a color belt. He loved playing the De La Riva and he found the inversion to be an instinctual movement for him. According to Braga, he used the Berimbolo very successfully as a brown belt, but no one took the move seriously until he started using it as a black belt in 2005. This again seems to be one of those situations where it's possible multiple people could have independently created and developed versions of the Berimbolo at the same time. It's entirely possible that Samuel Braga and Marcel Ferreira and probably many others all came up with the Berimbolo independently. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this bolo deep dive, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And a heads up, if you're not on YouTube Premium, you can catch an ad-free version of this video at rjujitsu.com in the members area. No sign up required, just head on over to rjujitsu.com. After Samuel Braga, the next early pioneers of the Berimbolo and arguably the most famous practitioners of the move came in the 2010s. Interestingly, the Berimbolo became most famous for its use by two sets of brothers, the Mendes brothers and the Miyao brothers. The Mendes brothers, Rafa and Guy, were the first to truly take Berimbolos to the jiu-jitsu mainstream. Rafa Mendes in particular is really seen as the one who unlocked the Berimbolo to leg drag in 50-50 combinations. The most famous example of the Mendes Berimbolo would be from Rafa's encounters with Cobrinha. There couldn't be a better spotlight to show the effectiveness of such a technique than one of jiu-jitsu's most epic rivalries. In their first meeting in 2008, Rafa used his failed bolo attempt to enter the 50-50. Unfortunately, Rafa lost that match on points ultimately. But 7 years later, and many more matches in the rivalry, we still see Rafa using the bolo against Cobrinha, but this time successfully. At their final meeting at the 2015 World Championships, Rafa showed off his signature transitions between the bolo, 50-50, and leg drag and won the match 6-0. The innovative use of the Berimbolo by Rafa Mendes had a profound impact on the sport. The consistent victories at the highest levels made the technique impossible to ignore, compelling fans, media, and other competitors to recognize its significance and its effectiveness. The Mendes brothers were instrumental in transforming the Berimbolo from a relatively obscure technique into a cornerstone of modern competitive jiu-jitsu strategy. Following the popularization by the Mendes brothers, the Berimbolo continued to evolve, with other prominent athletes adding their own unique refinements and innovations. Among these, the brothers Paulo and João Miyao stood out for their significant contributions to the technique's development and notoriety. Known for their incredible flexibility and relentless pursuit of backtakes, the Miyao brothers adopted the Berimbolo as a central component of their grappling style. Their constant experimentation and refinement of the technique led to the emergence of new variations, entries, and finishes, further expanding the possibilities of the Berimbolo. The crab ride system in particular is probably their most famous contribution to the bolo world, be it in the gi or no gi. The Miyaos would use leg entanglements to invert, grab the hips, and settle two crab hooks. From the crab ride, opponents were transported to the Miyao world. The twins would use the bolo crab ride combo to transition between back takes and guard passes with incredible speed and timing. The Miyao game plan was obvious. Step 1, pull guard. Step 2, get De La Riva. Step 3, transition to the Berimbolo. Step 4, transition to the crab ride if the bolo fails. Step 5, take the back. Step 6, lapel choke. The fact that their opponents, even when fully aware of the Berimbolo threat, frequently struggled to defend against it underscores its central and effective role in their overarching strategy. The Miyao brothers' Berimbolo was not simply a standalone move, but a fundamental component of a cohesive and well-integrated system, seamlessly connecting their guard work with their proficiency in achieving backtakes and submission attempts. This strategic cohesion between their De La Riva, the Berimbolo, and the crab ride systems underscores the importance of developing a holistic game plan, where individual techniques effectively complement and enhance one another. They were fluent in how to get to the Berimbolo and crab ride from any position. The combination of their highlight reels and just their overall vibe and mystique turned the Miyao brothers into jiu-jitsu icons. They inspired a whole generation of Berimbolo players, but since the Miyao brothers and even before them, the Berimbolo has been seen as kind of a specialist move for small and flexible players. It's not uncommon to find experienced practitioners who scoff at the Berimbolo. It has a reputation of being a very sports-specific movement that most people don't have the body type for. But that attitude might be changing thanks to the new generation of bolo players. They're bringing a new angle to the bolo, and that is around leg locks. Jiu-jitsu in the 2020 era is all about no-gi, and a big part of the no-gi world is leg locks. Heel hooks, Z-locks, Mikey locks, whatever. No-gi is notorious for having the most terrifying ways to break or twist a leg into pieces. This combination of the rise of no-gi and the historic fear of leg locks led to a kind of leg lock gold rush or arms race, you could say. Everyone had to learn leg locks and how to force your opponent into leg entanglements if they want to keep up with the competitive scene. Now that we've set the backdrop, back to the bolo. The Berimbolo has traditionally always been seen as a gi technique. Its no-gi variations were never quite taken seriously. The lack of lapels and the slipperiness of the no-gi bolo meant that it was incredibly difficult to take the back. And at its worst, a bolo attempt could land you inside a nasty leg lock. So the bolo was kind of ignored by the no-gi world for many years. But baby steps were being made. The knee wedge backtake started gaining popularity as a top player or guard passer defense to leg lockers. The Ruotolo brothers in particular used knee wedges to extract their exposed heels and counter leg lockers very successfully. While not quite a full-fledged Berimbolo from De La Riva, knee wedge backtakes against leg lockers gave people exposure to the bolo world. No major flexibility required, and it's a move that can happen from a variety of positions. But the conversation is changing. With the widespread dominance of leg lock-focused strategies in no-gi, there arose an opportunity for bolo players. So many Berimbolo specialists rely on leg entanglements, be it a De La Riva or a 50-50 battle or crab ride, etc. Bolo players have an advantage when it comes to familiarity with playing the leg entanglement game. With a huge trend towards attacking leg locks in no-gi, people got comfortable sitting in double guard pulls and leg entanglements and looking for counter leg locks, which is exactly what modern Berimbolo players thrive on. The modern bolo players like Mikey Musumeci, Levi Jones-Leary, and Diego Pato have found a new pathway to connect to the bolo, much like how the Mendes brothers and the Miyao brothers did previously with leg drags and crab ride. These new bolo players have now added leg lock defenses, leg lock attacks, and transitions to the Berimbolo game. They're playing a dilemma between attacking the back and attacking the legs. So it's really no surprise that these bolo players happen to have great leg lock games as well. And with their years of experience drilling from the gi, they're able to adapt to the slipperiness and the speed of the no-gi game. They're not just going for a bolo and settling for a top position or a disengagement like was the norm in the past. They've adapted their grips and hooks to consistently get to the back despite the sweaty conditions. The modern bolo players are making the argument that Berimbolos and the complementary systems need to be a part of the standard leg lock curriculum. It's not a niche technique only for flexible featherweights, but a necessity in learning to deal with competent leg lockers. The relationship between leg locks and backtakes is a fundamental part of the no-gi game, and not something to be ignored if schools and practitioners want to develop well-rounded jiu-jitsu games. If you're looking to take your Berimbolo game to the next level, I have recommendations for you to check out. For gi fans, you got to check out Espen Matheson and John Thomas. Both of them have free resources on YouTube talking about bolo technique and related concepts, and they also have instructionals for sale on their website. Also be sure to check out Mikey Musumeci and Diego Pato in their gi matches. For no-gi instructionals, I would recommend checking out Lachlan Giles' Submeta platform. He has courses not just on the Berimbolo, but all the related complementary systems. I also think he does the best job of showing the relationship between leg locks and the bolo game. If you're new to Submeta, make sure to get a discount code for Submeta at ourjujitsu.com's deals and discount page. We will leave a link in the description. And of course, Levi Jones-Leary also has a Patreon where he gives excellent no-gi technique breakdowns. The Berimbolo has undergone a remarkable evolutionary journey within the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The contributions of athletes like Hafengi Mendes and the Miyao brothers have cemented the Berimbolo's place in the Jiu-Jitsu lexicon. And with the surging popularity of no-gi and leg locks, bolos now have the potential to go from a niche technique to being a standard in Jiu-Jitsu curriculums around the world. Now I want to know, tell me in the comments your thoughts on the Berimbolo evolution. When did you first encounter the Berimbolo, and do you think it's an important system for Jiu-Jitsu players to learn? Or is it just some niche, sports-specific technique for the small, flexible guys? What is the future of the bolo in the Jiu-Jitsu world? Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and please check out ourjujitsu.com.